there are three main components when I work with somebody. They come to me either needing to improve their performance in their current job because they're at risk of being demoted or worse, terminated, or they're coming to me because they're just not happy in the work they do, etc. So this is the framework that I take each person through. It's the road that we travel that allows me to pull these individuals, maybe in the future it's you, towards the work, the purpose, and the passion that your life is missing. So I just pull you towards that using this framework. So let's dive in here. There are three main components, as you can see in these three circles. And what we're going to do is we're going to focus on each of these, and I'm going to break this down for you how we walk through this. Okay? The first circle, and this is the most important, is awareness. You got to increase your self-awareness in order to grow and in order to move towards who you were created to be. Okay? Now, there are two main components here that are important to gain awareness, and those two components are brought about from or are discovered by, and I don't want to be on eraser, I want to be on assessment. Okay? So we do an assessment to help you build awareness. A personality, behavioral, occupational assessment. And this assessment helps you discover, or rather uncover, your hidden needs, as well as your personal interests. Now, interests are those things that you gravitate towards in terms of activity. It has nothing to do with skill. So a prime example of that is like you may have a really high interest in music, but have no desire whatsoever to play music. And your interest in music is more around rhythms in life or the appreciation of the sound of harmony, whatever it might be. But that's just one example. Now, the only assessment that I know that has been able to bring this about, and it has the ability to uncover those hidden needs as well as those interests, is the Berkman Method assessment. Now, as a Berkman certified professional, I'm trained to administer and interpret individual results of the Berkman assessment. So I take each one of my clients through that. And this is really the first thing that we do as part of the coaching process is we take this assessment. It gives us a baseline. It gives a sound understanding of where you as an individual is at, and it helps build this awareness. Okay? So that is number one. We have to build your awareness. We do that by taking an assessment, uncovering your hidden needs, and helping you discover your interests. The second component that we work on is boundaries. Okay? And boundaries are simply about identity. Okay? Boundaries help you establish a sense of ownership. What is yours versus what is not yours. All right? And so the first boundary component, there are actually 9 aspects of personhood that are a part of, that make up boundaries, that make up your person. But we focus on 3 of them. And the first one is limits. Okay? Now, just like in the game of football, if the quarterback throws the ball out of bounds and the receiver catches it, it's a dead play, right? The ball goes back to the original line of scrimmage and you lose it down. So you cannot score, you cannot advance in the game of life if you are not operating within your boundaries, within your limits, okay? And so we really focus hard on that, where it is you are able to go to before you lose or exceed that which you were designed to do, All right. The second boundaries component that we focus on is choices. And the reason for that is because choices make up everything we do. You choose how much you will or will not do, i.e. limits. You choose the attitude in which you approach life. You choose the behaviors that you exhibit. Okay, so choice goes into all of those, and it helps you establish this edginess about you that gives you shape. All right. So limits and choices are the first boundaries that we cover, and then the third one, which isn't really a boundary, but it requires that you have good boundaries to be able to navigate, is circumstances. And what we try to do here with circumstances, now that you have limits and you're aware of your choices, you know what your needs are, you know where your interests lie, you can focus clearly and soundly on what you offer a circumstance, how you respond to a circumstance, rather than focusing on the circumstance and having it wield power over you, creating a reaction. And that is simply what we kind of cover. And that helps you to grow and become more of who you were designed to be. Okay? Now the third component that is necessary is communication. Now you cannot have good communication without first being aware of who you are and establishing boundaries, because your communication is going to be all over the place. It's not going to be, you're not going to be communicating from who you are, okay? And so the communication component is important. We have to be able to communicate clearly from who we were designed to be, from who we are, okay? Now, we all have an innate style. We all have a way in which we communicate and the way in which we receive communication. And so the first component that we work on with communication is becoming others aware. Okay? And by recognizing and understanding where you are communicating from, how you like to communicate, and also recognizing the way in which somebody else might be able to receive communication is important. Why? Because if you're in communication that has friction, if you're in a relationship or you're communicating at work and there's friction, it might be the result of two conflicting styles. For example, in the component of assertiveness, there are those that are very direct, frank, and straight to the point, and then there are those that are more suggestive. Well, when those two communication styles come up against each other, the frankness and bluntness of one person causes the suggestive individual to maybe retreat and become less likely to want to communicate. And then the opposite occurs too. If somebody is very suggestive and the individual would rather receive information very frankly and to the point, that suggestiveness is going to create stress in that individual, and therefore you're going to have conflict. Okay, so others aware is very important in your communication. Now, the place where we are able to work on communication, recognize our communication, and grow in our communication is in community. So we have to build and establish some form of community, whether that be joining the community of individuals in my group, or a community outside of your workplace, or even a small niche community within your workplace. You've got to be doing life with other people. And that's going to help you grow in communication. Why? Because communication is a skill, and that skill, in order for it to improve, requires the third component of communication, and that's practice. We have to practice our communication and grow in that skill set. Okay? So, when you are able to become more aware of what your needs are, where your interests lie, so that you can help meet those needs to be at your best and help you engage in interests outside of your work that fuel you and give you energy, you're going to be more equipped to handle the stresses of work. When you're more boundaried, when you have limits that are set, and you understand that you have a choice to give your energy to a project or not give your energy to a project. You have the ability to handle circumstances where you respond from the only way you can rather than letting the circumstance control what you do. When you are able to do that and then communicate efficiently about your awareness and about your boundaries, you're going to grow, and you're going to allow your inner hero to emerge. And when you bring your inner hero to work, it's going to increase your satisfaction in your job. It's going to increase your well-being because there's going to be less stress. And it's going to help you, as a result of more satisfaction and greater well-being, you'll become more productive. And that's going to increase your earnings, either through the raise that you've been looking for or through advancement of promotion. So this is how I work with individuals. Very simply put, we focus on building awareness, establishing boundaries, and growing our communication skills. And as a result of doing those things, we have our inner hero emerge, and it results in more satisfaction, more well-being, and higher earnings.